欢迎收看今天文茜的世界周报。台湾很不幸的，一天之内感染病例达到了180例。在我们现场两位贵宾，我们非常谢谢他。第一位是朱云鹏教授，第二位是杨永明教授。这是我们节目里头老朋友。介绍朱云鹏教授是东吴大学讲座教授，同时著名的经济学专家，也是担任过政务委员。杨永明教授呢是前国安会的副秘书长，同时长期的研究美国、台湾、日本之间的关系。他是台大政治系的前任的教授，现在是兼任教授。两位在现场，我们一起来看待全世界目前疫情的整体状况之外，也了解全球的经济，还有疫苗。在这里头，过去我们了解的整个对于疫情有一个 keywords 叫做疫情，现在的 keywords 叫做疫情的变种病毒，就是变种病毒变成 keyword， 最严重的是印度。而现在呢，另外一个为了防止不断的变种病毒的最快的方法，就是赶快全面的接种疫苗。而疫苗呢，现在本来大家以为说美国打的差不多，可以释出给全世界；英国打的差不多，可以释出给全世界。可是印度变种病毒一起来的时刻，由于印度的人口高达13亿7千多万，这使得它所需要的疫苗的数目是非常的惊人的。而它又是美国印太战略的重地，所以美国不太可能不理睬印度目前的疫情。所以呢，现在我们所看到在印度所发生的悲剧，它会影响全世界，影响什么呢？那印度的情况呢，对我们台湾来说不是完全无关的。我们不只是在关心国际的问题，你要了解全世界疫苗能够生产的就是那个数量。当印度有这么多人口，这么大的一个疫情的情况里头，我们台湾在这一刻很希望赶快全民接种，因为我们全民接种率不到1%。在这样的情况里头，我们来看印度的疫情。印度疫情很可能是美国多余的 AZ 疫苗，现在台湾也希望争取，印度当然也希望争取，会先给谁我不知道。我们先来看印度的这个悲剧的状态。
恒河是印度的圣河之一，西起喜马拉雅山脉，东至孟加拉湾，蜿蜒超过2500公里，沿岸有数以百万计居民。它被视为印度人的母亲河，他们喝恒河水，也在恒河沐浴。但是恒河也是印度污染最严重的河流。今年5月，印度东北部比哈尔邦的人们突然在焦萨河段看到死尸，要么漂浮在水上，要么搁浅在河岸，数量从1具、2具增加到数十具，慢慢地变成了数百具。
लेकिन इस समय तो लाश को जलाया जाता है सर। हाँ, अब तो हम लोग खुद ही बरी देते हैं कि नहीं लाश को जलाइए। उत्तर प्रदेश से बहकर लाश जो है ना。
他一直劝阻人们将尸体弃置在河中，但是人们拒绝听从，因为火化太贵了，而且一位难求。
The cremations start before dawn, as workers still clean away the embers of the night before. Nestled on the banks of the river Ganges, Varanasi is India's holiest city. But it has not been spared by the vicious second wave of coronavirus ripping through the country. As day breaks, Matru Chowdhury waits for the rush to begin. His family has worked in the crematorium for generations, but he says they've never seen anything like this.
About 100, 140, 50 body per day.
And what would you...
Every 5 minutes, 10 minutes after ambulance bring the body.
Officially, the government says that 8 to 10 people are dying here of coronavirus every day. But the real figure is clearly much, much higher.
In less than an hour, we saw 13 funerals here. The government says there were just 7 in the whole day. We'll never know how many died of the virus in this country.
能火化的都算是家境好些的。英国 BBC 报道称，如果请救护车运遗体来火化，要收2000卢比，木头也贵。
The situation in the city has become so bad that shortages have been reported of wood needed for the funeral pyres. Merchant Deepak Chowdhury says the demand is 4 times higher than usual.
这是当然的啊。5月14号，印度确诊人数突破2400万，也就是短短14天内，印度就增加480万名确诊病例，死亡人数已累计至26万人，并且以每天3-4千人的速度增加。此时，一个新的危机袭来，印度部分新冠患者身上出现真菌感染。 这种真菌可以造成毁容甚至死亡。这种俗称黑木耳感染的毛霉菌病，好发于 ICU 病房久治不愈的患者。
This deadly infection caused a high mortality, with many patients suffering from loss of eyesight, removal of the nose and jawbone. This infection is seen in patients who have recovered from COVID-19.
医院氧气不足的问题也一样没解决。
On Monday night, oxygen supply disruption happened for 5 minutes and 11 people had died.
这样的画面天天上演。其实印度并不缺氧气。
It produces nearly 7,000 tons a day, enough for its 1.3 billion people. Liquid oxygen has to be stored at very low temperatures. Cryogenic tankers keep it at the right levels, but India doesn't have enough. And it's relying on getting supplies from other countries, like Singapore. Oxygen has to be transported by road or trains, and not by air, which is why cities are still waiting.
कोई बंदा ऑक्सीजन के बिना नहीं मरना चाहिए। ऑक्सीजन बड़ी छोटी सी चीज होती है जो आज बहुत बड़ी लोगों के लिए समझ लो एक भगवान।
One man said he paid 45,000 rupees for one, or about $600. That's about 9 times its usual price.
Let me show you more numbers. Our healthcare spending in both public and private sector, it has been 3.6% of the GDP for the past 6 years. This is among the lowest in both the developed and the developing world. The US spends 16.9% of its GDP on healthcare. Germany 11.2%, Brazil 9.2%, South Africa 8.1%, Russia 5.3%. Even Thailand is ahead with 3.79%.
印度政府不仅氧气分配上严重失职，连救命的呼吸器也是。
The fact that life-saving equipment, which could have saved so many citizens, was simply lying unused in different parts of the country. You heard that right. India today has found multiple shocking instances of ventilators purchased using PM CARES funds, lying undeployed and collecting dust in several locations. Want visual proof? Let's show you firsthand. This is the government medical college in Firozabad in Uttar Pradesh, one of the worst affected states in the country in the second COVID wave. At this hospital, 67 ventilators have been gathering dust for 1 full year. They were procured using PM CARES funds. The hospital authorities say they don't need these ventilators.
而政府做不好，还不许人说。
They're fighting on several fronts in India. Fighting to save lives, but also fighting to tell it as it is. Every COVID patient who arrives here desperately needs oxygen. But those who sounded the alarm about oxygen shortages at this hospital are now being charged under the National Security Act and face being arrested at any moment.
政府有没有失职？数据会说话。
The Kumbh Mela in Haridwar, which was attended by more than 48 lakh devotees, more than 4.8 million people. There were no masks or social distancing. Between April 10th and 14th, nearly 2,000 people tested positive at the Kumbh. When the congregation began, daily cases in Uttarakhand stood at 500. By the time it was called off on the 17th of April, the daily cases had grown to 2,700 plus. In Madhya Pradesh, and listen to this, 99% of the Kumbh returnees tested positive, 99%.
印度总理莫迪的另一个错误就是坚持举行大选。虽然他多次撇清疫情扩散与选举有关，但是老话一句，数字会说话。
Tamil Nadu, daily cases went from 474 on March 1st to nearly 8,500 on April 16th. Kerala, the cases went from 2,500 on April 2nd to 10,000 on April 16th.
若以比例算，3月各邦大致的确诊比例相差无几。
Cut to the 15th of April and look at how the graph changes. In non-election states, it came down to 3.01%. In election states, with rallies, it went up to 7.99%. Do you see the difference?
更可恶的是，正是莫迪的一意孤行，已经害死了至少700名老师。
Sarita Singh took selfies whilst working at the local elections in Uttar Pradesh. She was among hundreds of teachers ordered by the government to run the polls. If they refused, they risked losing their jobs. These pictures given to us by teachers show just how packed it was. By this stage, India was already setting global records for coronavirus infections. Within a week of returning, Sarita was ill and struggling to breathe. We travelled to the village in Uttar Pradesh where Sarita lived. The teacher's family is not only in mourning for her, but when we arrive at the home which is now cordoned off, one of her sons, who deliberately keeps his distance, tells us that both his father and brother have been told they have COVID, and the rest of them are all showing symptoms. There's a lot of fear in the village now. The only hospital is nearly 2 hours away, and that's if you have a vehicle. Most here don't. Sarita's family begged her not to do the election work, but told us the teachers had been warned they faced being arrested if they didn't do their civic duty.
ये सब जो दिन देखना पड़ रहा है, ये सुनना देखना पड़ता। आज उनका बर्थडे, आज मदर्स डे, और आज के दिन आप सब ये सब कर रहे हैं। जिस दिन हम लोग उनको शुभकामनाएं देते हैं, उस दिन उनको ये बताना पड़ रहा है कि वो किस वजह से दुनिया से चली गई। उनका जन्मदिन है।
बता हम बात भी समझाएंगे मम्मी का अगले साल जन्मदिन ना
最痛心的莫过于白发人送黑发人的老妈妈。
These are the results of the coronavirus test which she took on May the 3rd. It's positive. She'd suffered 7 days of symptoms by this time, and she only got the result the day after she died. So she was never registered as a coronavirus death.
世界就是如此荒谬，就为了一场选举，把新冠病毒带进了原本没有疫情的农村。面对疫情的失控，印度35个地方政府宣布封城，首都新德里延长封锁至5月17号，这已经是第3次延长。诊耐为时1万，印度平均每1万人当中医生不到10个，在一些贫困地方，这数字甚至低于5个。柳叶刀在最新刊发的一篇社论中，援引华盛顿大学的最新推算。 直到了今年8月1号，印度新冠死亡人数可能达到惊人的100万人。
70% of India's 1.3 billion people live outside the major cities. It's in these smaller places where the virus is now spreading. Hospitals have been so overwhelmed, patients are being treated outdoors. But in the capital, the government seems more focused on a massive construction project, a new parliament building, and a new residence for the Prime Minister. As hospitals languish and beg for basic supplies, critics are furious at the $1.8 billion price tag for what they're calling a vanity project of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Death has always been part of the fabric of life in Varanasi. For centuries, people have come here to die. The belief is that the sacred waters of the river Ganges will help their souls achieve moksha, liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. But the staggering toll of this scourge has shocked everyone.
It's a very bad situation right now. And every household is facing this. I don't think there's any family that has been spared.
As the sun sets, the sound of the evening prayer pierces the smoky air. The next wave of the dead is brought in, and the cycle begins again. Clarissa.
而印度自己本身可以从这一群的轮回里头解脱出来吗？我现场访问2位来宾啊，我们刚刚看到好几个讯息，这都是令人难以置信的印度的真相。第一个，印度的问题现在已经不是没有疫苗，它的问题是它根本没有氧气。 而他的氧气，国际虽然运送给他，但是他不能够用飞机运送，他得用一般的车子运送，所以非常非常的慢。 然后另外呢，我们还记得当时武汉封城的时候，很多人纪念李文亮医师，结果印度的很多李文亮医师，就是印度有很多把他们的真正的疫情揭露出来的这些医生，现在都被寄出国安法，叫他闭嘴。然后氧气真的不足吗？他会闲置在那里，是政府失能吗？我也看到一个报道，他们把一个豪华酒店改成高级政府官员或是警察，如果得病，他们就变成住在那些病房里面，所以很可能氧气是给这些特权的人所使用的。那请注意啊，印度过去会把莫迪选出来的原因，是在这一场的金融海啸里头，他们反对甘地家族这些贵族，所以他是以平民领袖上台，而且带着印度教的宗族主义，但是更重要的是，他相对甘地家族，他是一个平民。结果我们所看到的情况是，当英国寄出来说，哎，我在某年某月某日不准印度入境的时候，凌晨4点钟，那3点15分，好几个富豪的私人飞机马上抵达哈。那我们又看了一个情况，这次大家检讨起来都已经知道一个叫他们的新年的大壶节。刚才的数据是更清楚，参加大壶节的99%都确诊，这是他疫情这么严重。然后硬要举行选举，这使得很多有选举的地区，它的确诊病例都增加了4倍。而没有选举的地区就没有这么大幅的增加。那老师，刚刚我们看到一个老师的个人的故事，他并不想去，全家人也叫他不要去参加选举，去投票。他说不行啊，政府会派警察来抓我。最后他死了，而他也有去检测他到底有没有新冠病毒，因为他不舒服。结果印度的政府效率呢，超过7天的检测才出来，而他死了以后1天。才告诉他确诊是阳性的哈。那我们看到报道以后，记者说，如果按照印度的作风，他的官僚作风，他就不列入新冠死亡的名单内，所以大家才说他的官方是隐瞒的。你怎么看这个情况？这是印度崩溃论吗？
是这次啊，印度的这个政府的这个失能啊，在这次的暴露无遗啊。比如说刚刚讲的氧气啊。其实这个媒体就有报道，印度它工业氧气多得很啊，但是它现在就必须把它分到各医院，对不对？其中一个方法呢，就是在工厂装瓶，好，瓶子不够，结果有一家工厂它是专门做这个瓶子的，可是它做瓶子的时候需要氧气啊，那政府说工业氧气一律不准，所以这家只好停止做瓶子，所以氧气瓶也没了，这是第一个。第二个。刚才我们的影片看到啊，说这个医生如果说氧气不足被抓，那个是在某一个地方政府，那个地方政府的这个执行长啊，就是一般都认为他以后就是莫迪的接班人，莫迪就是他宣布的，他说本邦完全没有氧气不够，任何人如果敢讲氧气不够，就是违反安全。要把它抓起来，所以他这整个政府现在是处于失能的状态啊。那我们另外又看到报道，情况在首都新德里是非常糟糕啊。除了莫迪他有特别命令他的国会大厦跟他的官邸继续盖以外，其他都停了。那新德里呢，首都啊，上面有中央政府，底下有5个地方政府，所以这中间协调一塌糊涂。
印度能够从这一次的疫情里头再站起来吗？你的看法？
到目前为止，我觉得至少我们过去10年或20年，对印度有2个错误的认知的迷失哈。因为这次疫情的大幅的传染，我觉得凸显出来。第一个，其实他一直因为西方一直拿它做样板，所谓是全世界最大的民主国家，有50-60年，它事实上都是这个人民投票。可是事实上，它的基础建设、卫生的环境非常的落后，人民的教育水准、收入水准非常的低，50-60年来都没什么变化。即使是过去的这个10年，其实也没什么太大的改变。所以再加上印度其实是有很深刻的种姓制度，那种统治者、精英，莫迪是个新精英嘛，新统治者，而且他事实上已经统治很久了。 的那种心态，其实再加上他实际上这个统治阶层跟就是说这种有钱的人，跟这个社会大众普遍60%都是农民，那个距离太远，你难以让他们想象去有那种同理心。所以呢，对他而言，重要的是宗教活动能够支撑他的这个政治权利，重要的是这个选举能够去确保他这个执政党 BJP 能够执政。所以呢，他当然加上他过去这个1、2月的时候呢，其实他很有这个自傲，他事实上。印度是世界疫苗生产最大的国家，所以他还跟拜登说要由他们提供原料，要制造10亿支疫苗提供给印太国家。那这样子的一个作为，他觉得说接下来的选举跟重大活动当然就全部开放。那事实上那个时候已经都出来，就是说很多的文章刚刚有提到，所以民主这个概念，当然最后的检验就是说你政府选出来的治理能力哈。其实也真的是受到考验。第二个很大的，
他有民主吗？他在里头讲出疫情的人就被国安法记出来了。
是啊，所以事实上，现在莫迪被认为某种程度，莫迪治理之下的印度是一种不自由的民主。
那个，
也就是说，它其实是一种威权统治之下的一个作为。
很快问你啊，就是我刚才最关心的，就是说他现在人口这么密集，然后他们其实很多卫生知识都很落后。
是。
那它有没有可能再变种，变成很可怕的完美风暴？
我觉得现在应该是已经出来了。现在他讲这个两双重变种，一个是接近南非变种的那个，也就是说它是比较抗拒这些疫苗的那种这个变种能力；另外一个是比较接近加州变种，那个是比较会去传播更快传播的，所以它叫双重变种。但事实上，我们看到一些这个报道已经出来，有3重变种出来，也就是这2个之外，又加上一个新的变种。
我们先进广告。